Hello, my name is Otis, and I'm with the Kids in Capitalism KidCast. Today's guest is U.S. Congressman Kevin Cramer, and we have some questions to ask him. First of all, what was your first job, sir?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Otis. My first job was as a janitor, basically. I went to the cafe every day after school in Kindred, the Kindred Cafe, and I cleaned the place. I swept the floors, I mopped the floors, cleaned the bathrooms, made sure that that all the ketchup bottles were full, of course, and all the tables were clean. And so I did that when I was 12 years old. It was the first time I actually got paid for a job and where Social Security was withheld.
How important do you think that entrepreneurs are to America?
Well, they're really important. And here's a very important statistic. I didn't know you were going to ask me this question, but if we didn't have startup businesses in the United States, we would have a net loss of jobs. Now, you think, just imagine that. It means most of, in fact, more than the new jobs created every year are created by entrepreneurs, by startups, innovators. And so entrepreneurship is critical. Napoleon, who was a famous leader in France, once said the logical conclusion of defense is defeat. So the way I apply that to the economy is that if you have a bunch of really big businesses that are very successful, and you decide one day, hey, we've got everything we need, we've got a bunch of big corporations that should provide employment and economic security forever, you will immediately start deteriorating as an economy. So we've got to have entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Do you know President-elect Donald Trump?
I do know him. I don't know him super well. I didn't know him before he was a candidate, but I have met him and have worked with him on a number of policy issues and represented him throughout the country these last few months.
Little side question. Was he nice?
He's very nice. In fact, he's a very very curious person. Most everybody who's successful is. He's very charming. You'll hear that word applied to him a lot in person. He's very charming. By that I mean he's gracious to everyone that he meets. He's even generous in terms of time that he gives people, his attention. He's a very nice man.
Thank you. What are you doing to help my future career as an entrepreneur?
Sure. So there are a number of things. The biggest thing, Otis, the biggest thing the government can do for entrepreneurs is get out of their way. And the biggest mistake the government often makes is getting in the way. So, for example, one of the most important things for an innovator, or for an entrepreneur, is access to capital, access to money, right? Well, the government oftentimes provides money, and that's okay. The Small Business Administration and various other agencies that might have grant dollars or what we call benevolent capital to help start up businesses. Those are things the government does to try and help. However, oftentimes the government, along with their help, will bring a bunch of barriers with it or strings that are attached that make it almost not worth taking the money. But beyond that, the government imposes a lot of restrictions and a lot of regulations on business, including startups. But probably one of the biggest challenges right now for entrepreneurs is, with regard to capital, are the banking laws. There was a law passed in Barack Obama's first term called Dodd-Frank, and Dodd-Frank was intended to sort of rein in the giant banks on Wall Street. And what it really did is it constrained the opportunity for community banks and credit unions and other lending institutions, so that it made it more difficult for them to invest in entrepreneurs and in startup companies. So, like I say, the biggest thing the government can do is get out of the way. One of the specific areas that we've actually made some improvements in public policy was just last year, about a year ago when we were working on it. And that was making the research and development tax credit permanent law, so that an innovator that has, an invention or even a good idea, maybe they already have a small business, but they've got another part of it, another invention, they can actually get a credit for their research and development costs, and that's now permanent law. So that's what we call certainty in the tax code, so that you know what the rules are, and the rules always remain the same, and they're beneficial for entrepreneurs.
What advice do you have for kidtrepreneurs like me?
Advice for kidtrepreneurs, a couple of things. One is never give up. You know, listen carefully to your parents who are wiser and more experienced, not necessarily smarter, but certainly more experienced, and be disciplined. You know, but also don't be afraid to take risks, realizing that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Whatever that risk might be, it might be with a new product. It might be with a new idea. It might even be something as basic as just sharing an idea with somebody in hopes that it might go somewhere. But you might feel, you know, foolish, or you might be afraid it's a dumb idea. Don't be afraid of dumb ideas. Take risks, because if you don't take risks, nothing big will ever happen.
Thank you again for answering those questions, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome.